The Corazziere and Geniere are Italy's new 4.3 destroyers in Update 1.99. The Corazziere is a tech tree vehicle, while the Geniere is a $40 premium. These names are also particularly hard for me to pronounce, and I've spent the whole last week preparing to record this, so expect a few mistakes with the names here and there. For a bit of history, both came from the first batch of Soldati-class destroyers that were created. Corazziere was commissioned in 1939, and Geniere was commissioned in 1938. Corazziere was scuttled in 1943 by her crew, raised up by the Germans, and then sunk again in 1944. Geniere was sunk in 1943 by US bombing raids. In War Thunder, both Soldatis come with the same primary armament, 2 dual 120mm turrets, and 1 single 120mm turret. These cannons have a very poor rate of fire at 8 rounds per minute and pretty bad dispersion. While the vertical dispersion is fine, the horizontal dispersion is notably very bad, meaning it's difficult to target specific sections of a ship. The rotation rate of these turrets is excellent, and the shells have very high velocity, though that's all these cannons really have going for them. The 120mm cannon gets 3 shells, HE, AP, and HETF. The standard HE is very weak due to having a relatively low amount of explosive filler, so I'd only use it against soft targets like patrol boats, escort ships, and early destroyers. The AP shell actually has quite a lot more explosive filler than most comparable AP shells at this BR, making it the overall best shell the Soldatis have for fighting destroyers and cruisers. The HETF shell is inconsistent due to the crew set fuse, and since the turrets can't elevate very high, it isn't that useful for actually killing aircraft. I'd recommend taking primarily AP ammunition, along with some HE for killing lighter ships, and a few HETF shells to potentially damage planes at ranges they're not expecting to take fire at. The anti-air armament of the Soldatis isn't much better for killing aircraft either. The Corazziere gets 4 dual 20mm Breda autocannons, while the Geniere gets 6 dual 20mm Breda autocannons. This is the only difference between the two ships. These guns have a pretty short range and very low damage. The Breda autocannons get 3 belts, Default, HE, and AP. I'd recommend taking the HE belts, as you're going to need all the damage you can possibly get against aircraft. You can get 2 to 3 turrets on a plane depending on which ship you're using, and while they're not great, they can score occasional kills through sheer volume of fire. Lastly comes the secondary weapons, 6 SI-270 torpedoes. These torpedoes have pretty good stats, with a 70 km/h top speed and 10 km travel distance with the torpedo mode modification. If you like using torpedoes, they're fine to take, but do be warned that they serve as an external ammunition rack and can easily get you killed when hit. It also gets some depth charges, which are depth charges, and as such we don't talk about them. As for survivability, both Soldatis are the exact same, though that's not a good thing. Both have 219 crew and no notable hull armor. HE absolutely tears through both ships, and neither can take fire for very long. The mobility of both of the Soldatis is also quite average. They have a pretty normal top speed of 65 km/h, good turning, and pretty normal acceleration. They're fine, but not really anything special here. When it comes to playstyle, the Soldatis generally have to rely on precise shots with their AP shells to critically damage enemy ships by hitting vulnerable sections such as ammo racks. This isn't easy due to the poor horizontal dispersion of the cannons, but if a shell does hit its mark, it can deal quite a lot of internal damage. Without consistent damage output or high survivability, they struggle in most fights, especially with the American meta currently dominating naval battles. Avoid direct combat and try to attack from flanking positions so that you can deal damage to an enemy before they can return fire. Be very careful when facing aircraft, as the anti-air weaponry of both ships is incredibly weak. If you see one lining up a run, try to use nearby land as cover or maneuver to throw their aim off. For the Corazziere's modifications, I'd recommend the following order: Toolset, Fire Protection System, 120mm APCBC, rudder replacement, shrapnel protection, ventilation, propeller replacement, and engine maintenance. The Geniere comes with all modifications unlocked, along with a talisman. For crew skills, prioritize leadership, main caliber reload speed, crew interchangeability, fire prevention, and ship control. As a premium grinder, I can't recommend the Geniere. It's a very weak destroyer compared to its peers, and a bit too expensive for what you get. The Sparviero is a much better grinder for Italy, as it's half the price and much more effective in combat at its own BR. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more naval content.